Hi guys, this video is going to be a quick rundown of vaccines and a few vaccine related things. So a quick reminder, vaccines are really just a way to trick the immune system into recognizing something that we want it to be prepared for. All right, so in a normal response to infection, you're exposed to an antigen. That antigen is something on a virus or a bacterium, something that can get you sick. And it takes a decent amount of time, right? A week and a half or so before you can really start producing a lot of antibodies. And so the first time you get sick, right? Because levels of the virus or the bacterium are going to be high by now. Once you start making antibodies, they'll come back down and you're in the clear. But if you can produce those antibodies faster, maybe that wouldn't happen. So the second time you get exposed to that virus, levels start to rise and they come right back down because you produce this strong immune response quickly, right? Quickly because we've got memory cells, we've got stronger antibodies due to affinity maturation, and you can fight it off. You technically still got an infection, you just didn't have symptoms, right? And the thing that all vaccines have in common is they teach the immune system by showing it the correct antigen, right? What does this virus or bacterium look like ahead of time so that when you see the real thing, it's like you're seeing it for the second time, right? That's the entire goal. And so whether you're using live cells, dead cells, denatured viruses, individual proteins, DNA or RNA that code for the protein, as long as you're showing your immune system the antigen, you'll be in good shape, right? Now, the second thing that I tack onto this is there is an enormous amount of misinformation out there about vaccines and especially risk for autism, which seems to have toned down in recent years, but it's still out there. And so I want to address it. The first obvious question is, does vaccination increase the risk of autism? The thing that some people will point to is that rates of autism, so this is number of diagnosed autism cases per 1,000 children, and we're going from 1989 through the early 2000s. These numbers, if you're curious, more recently have to some degree tapered off, but they still kept going up for a while. And when you see something like this, there are two options. Option one is, the number of cases really is going up and something's causing it. It's entirely plausible. The other possibility is that the number of cases isn't really going up. We're just either screening more, so there's more testing being done to find those cases, or potentially the criteria for what constitutes autism in this case is changing. It's kind of impossible to really prove for sure, but it seems like the increased screening and the lowered sort of threshold for what counts as a diagnosis is definitely part of it. But there probably are also increasing cases, so it's probably a combination of all those things. Right now, does that actually lead to the conclusion that vaccines are what's causing it? There's really nothing valid to back that up. Vaccination rates have not really changed dramatically from the 1990s until now, so that doesn't really seem like an explanatory variable. What likely happens is kids tend to get vaccinated in these younger years, which, if you notice, have the highest diagnosis rates. And so kid gets vaccinated, as almost all children do, vast majority. They go home. The kids that are perfectly fine, their parents probably just go on, never think about it, never make any, supposed connections. Kid that does develop autism-like symptoms, if it happens to correspond within, a few weeks or months of having got a vaccine, it's fairly easy for someone to make that jump and think, that's what must have caused it. But there are lots of things that go on in a person's life that could cause something. Without a legit clinical trial, you can't prove anything. And the truth is, there have been many, many, many trials in many different countries that have shown no clear correlation between vaccination rates and autism. If there's some sort of conspiracy, it involves tens of thousands of people in a dozen different countries and governments and businesses, everything from doctors to scientists to, government officials, and it just isn't plausible. And so there's really no direct connection. The whole thing basically started from one guy, name was Dr. Wakefield, who ended up getting arrested because he falsified a bunch of his data. And his paper really wasn't all that good anyway to begin with. It was very low sample size. But he showed a possible connection between the MMR vaccine and autism. And that paper came out about here in the late 90s. That is about when vaccination rates in the UK, which is where it was published, started going down. And unsurprisingly, at that low point is about when cases of the measles, one of the infectious diseases that vaccine protects against, started going up. Right, and I want to point out the significance of this. The concept of herd immunity is the idea that when a lot of people in a community have immunity, right, they're protected, the chance of them spreading it to anyone else obviously goes down. And so even if the vaccination rate is only 90%, these other 10% of people that weren't vaccinated are also still better off because there are fewer people there to pass it around. And once you get above 95% herd immunity, the number of cases goes usually very close to zero because there's just not enough susceptible people for the pathogen to spread to. Right. So, hope you found this interesting. Just remember, in the course of human history, if you're going to make a list of any interventions that have saved the most lives, without a doubt, no questions asked, vaccines by far. They've probably saved more lives than every other type of medical intervention combined. That doesn't mean they're all good or, some are better than others, right? The tetanus vaccine is incredible, almost perfect. The COVID vaccine is kind of but it's better than nothing. And it's everywhere in between based on how good the vaccine can mimic the properties of the pathogen itself.